So, ENT all done. Um, it was sort of uncomfortable for probably 5 or 10 minutes, but he was much better than he was the other day. I mean, obviously, he was busy, he was pressured, and it was the afternoon, whereas this morning he hadn't quite got as late as he might normally have been. He'd probably only had a few patients before me, so um, he was a bit easier, and I'd forgotten, but he does speak some English, so that was quite helpful, although he'd got a mask on at times, so it was difficult to understand what he was saying, even in English. Um, so he took me over and sat me in a chair and shoved cotton wool straws up my nose, with obviously with anaesthetic on. I sat there for a bit and said to Mark, "This is a bit of a Blackadder moment," and with Rowan Atkinson with pencils sticking out of his nostrils. It felt like that, but apparently it didn't look like that. And when I've looked at a picture of Rowan Atkinson with pencils coming out of his nostrils, there's a lot of pencil. And Mark said it wasn't that obvious. So he anaesthetised after having poked around in my mouth and decided to put a finger in to try and touch my tonsils. Anaesthetised, it wasn't anaesthetised, but it did feel, it felt a bit numb afterwards when I was in the pharmacy. I don't know whether it was numb when he was working on me. Got out his endoscope, and it's a very fine camera on there, so it's not massive. It's no more than what you shoved up with the cotton wool. Put that up, down, had a look around, and he said there isn't anything. There's nothing obvious there. He thinks that it's I can't remember the words, but he thinks it's like a neuralgia, leftover nerve irritation or pain, and it has been diminishing over the last couple of weeks, so I just think it will go away. He's given me some lozenges, but I'm not really bothered about those. And he's given me some, because he pressed all under here at the end, and it did actually, it was a bit painful under there. I'd never really noticed before, just a bit. But he pushed quite hard. So he's given me some ointment or cream to put on the outside. I'm not sure whether I'll use that because I'm not in pain. It's been discomfort more than anything, and an awareness and a realisation that I need to get it checked out. Because I was tempted to cancel it because it is diminishing, but the trouble is something like that can be the beginnings of a cancer, and it was important to get that checked, so I did. So that was all over and done with, and we were home. Although I had to go shopping, Mark wanted stuff. We got home just about 12:15. There was an accident on our road home, so we were diverted off our road. So I hope there haven't been any fatalities. Um, yeah, just before our junction on the D54. So we turned off and came back round the back roads. It's warm. I've had two lots of windows open, trying to get some heat blowing through, bringing the warm in. And I did, but I also brought flies in. That's the problem, isn't it? It's like I wanted to warm the house up, but I didn't want the flies in. I think we've got one last fly, and they're the big noisy ones that don't stay still, that rattle around, and they don't land on you, which is a good thing. Which is, that's good. No, I'm yawning. The cockerel isn't. So that, if he had got gapeworm, that's addressed it. The bread and diatom that everybody had, apart from Jazz, the other day, has sorted that, so I'm pleased about that. And making bread, I bought some spelt flour from the bio shop the other day, and I bought 5 kilos of it. And it's quite grainy, and I'm not sure if it's because of the flour, or maybe I was a bit previous with the starter, whether I didn't wait long enough for the starter. The starter had doubled. I should have let it triple in size, but it hadn't, and it just did not rise much in its initial proving last night. I've got to put this on now because it's just too bright out here. It didn't rise. So I let it go in the fridge overnight, brought it out, and it began to rise eventually at lunchtime. And I've manipulated it, and it's really sticky. I managed to put more flour on it to unsticky it, and it's still a bit sticky, but not quite. So it's now on a second proof, and I think I might be able to cook it by later on this evening. I'll cook it. It'll probably taste really nice because it looks like a really nice flour. And I don't think it's the fault of the flour that it hasn't risen. I think it's the fault of me for not not giving the starter time. And it might also be, I can't remember now whether the last, oh God, excuse me, the last addition to the starter was the new spelt flour. So we'll see. It's a whole new learning process with a different flour. So you can tell which way the wind's blowing because of the noise from the road. I think it's probably coming from the south. Yeah, it's coming from the south, which is why it's warm. It's better when it's coming from the north because it's behind and you can't hear it quite so much. What else? Picking the car up tomorrow. The guy that we purchased it from is off sick, so we've got to pick it up from someone else. I hope he's not sick with COVID. He was I noticed he was sniffing a bit when we were there the first week. Didn't notice it so much this last week, but then we were outside and we didn't really go. We may have gone in. We did go in a bit. We got to sign different paperwork because the paperwork I have that we signed was for the amount before part exchanging the Turan. So we need to sign new paperwork. So we need to see someone else. The payment's gone through, so it's all paid for. So this time tomorrow we'll have a new car sitting over there. I think Mark's more excited than I am. It has something that you put in. It's got a separate tank in the same that you fill next to the filler, the petrol diesel filler. It's something called AdBlue that we hadn't heard of, but it's an addition, a liquid that you use that reduces emissions. I'd not heard of that, and Mark hadn't heard of it, so he went out and bought some this morning. We now have plenty of AdBlue. So that was different. A bit disappointed yesterday to discover that we'd been not looking after, I mean, the two cats I spoke about, I think. Did I talk about our neighbour had gone away and he left the cats closed in because he wanted to protect them from marauding other cats? He came home last night and we got a text message to say, I'm home. And then by mistake, he sent a message to Mark that he'd meant for someone else. Within 5 minutes of him getting home and letting the cats out, there'd been a fight, and one of his cats had got wounds on her face. It's horrible, isn't it? It's like, what do you do? How do you stop cats from being aggressive? I don't know. It might be that, because in his message that he sent by mistake to Mark, he talks about his cats being sterilised, and the two male cats that we know of, that it could be one or the other, although there is a suspect, are intact. They've not been sterilised. It's very uncommon for French people to sterilise their animals. So our neighbour, who is French, has sterilised his cats, but the two male cats that are in the neighbourhood have not been sterilised. And of course that probably, makes them more aggressive. So that's not good, whole weekend spent indoors, which is such a shame because it's been really nice weather. And then they're allowed out and immediately get attacked. Don't know what's going to happen about that. He's coming over tomorrow afternoon, so I expect we'll find out what's going to happen. I was just looking at the magnolia. The magnolia that every year gets either sunburn or frostbitten. I got a sunburn this year, but just noticed that all the burnt leaves seemed to have come off, So it's not looking too bad, but it never flowers. It's been there. This is probably year 5. Be interesting to see if it flowers next year. It's a shame. There was a big cherry tree there when we moved in, and that started to collapse. So, which is why we've now got a fig tree here and a magnolia. We sort of replaced it, but in where the fig tree is, which I'm not showing you because you've seen it before, we planted a copper beech. We ordered one from the UK back before Brexit, so you could, that sort of thing you could have transported to you. The copper beech would grow really big. I shouldn't really have put it there, but anyway, put the copper beech there. It took a long time to look like it was establishing, and then the leaves started to come out, and the copper beech leaves come out. They're sort of very patterned and zigzaggy as they start to unfurl, and it reached a certain point, and then it just stopped, and it just never, it didn't thrive. And the fig tree's gradually managing, but that took a long time to get going. Nothing is thriving there, and yet the cherry tree that was there was really lovely and prolific with cherries. I don't understand that. Don't understand at all. So everywhere's greening up. It's looking lovely and green, and there's lots of pretty. I'll show you. Talk about it. I'll show you. I'm moving. Taking you off the tripod so I can move around. Lots of pretty weeds. Carpeted it is over here, which is very nice. But eventually, Ludo's going to be coming and cutting the front and the back. It's going to begin to look a bit smarter. Oh, bloody hell, what is this? It's these long things, they get caught, you get caught in them. Be really pleased to see the back of those. Another patch of those there. So yeah, everywhere's greening up. Very warm. Oh, look at that, conkers on the tree, not very good either. God, that's really bad. Not good. Well, the only thing that seems to have liked this weather is the wisteria, the passion flower. Really benefited, really seems to deal with the drought. And the conker tree normally is fine, but it doesn't look it this year, does it? It's a bit fatter up there. No. Okay, so that's the news from here. I've got something hanging onto my leg, I can feel it. Trying to drag me down. I'm going to walk over to the pond quietly. Put you on Zoom a bit, ready, in case the frog's there. The frog's been there the last couple of days. There's a tiny lizard running up there. I was running through the door. No. No frog. It sits on the fake leaf, the fake lily pad. Oh well. Okay. Bye.